As we have shown in our previous episodes, when we purchased the boat, the engine was completely seized up. This here doesn't move, and the decompression does not go up at all. At some point we decided to take the cylinder head off and investigate further. This is what we found.
Flooding away in there, I can't even tell what it might be. But something made its way into the cylinder head and started decomposing.
I cleaned everything out as good as I could, got a honing tool, honed the cylinder in the upper part to reach an even and flush finish again, and cleaned also the valves, put a new head gasket on and put everything back together. Unfortunately, it turned out that what we did wasn't quite enough. We must have missed something else. Now I could turn her by hand okay with no friction, but there was hardly any compression and therefore the engine would not start up. We decided to dig way deeper this time around and start over again, taking everything apart, including now the cylinder and the piston as well, to have a good look at the piston rings. Also, we decided to work on the valves again and replace them and do a proper valve job. So here is our DIY engine overhaul without taking the engine out of the boat. So here are the things that we need for the valve job. So it would be the exhaust valve and the intake valve, the new one that we ordered, plus the valve grinding tool with a fine and coarse grade grinding paste. So starting out with coarse and then fine. For the piston rings we have that piston ring tool here, the pliers, and this little cylinder device here, this little contraption that will allow us, once we have the piston rings on, to compress them enough to put them back into the cylinder. And these are the piston rings. And we use some brake cleaner to clean out the piston itself, the grooves where the rings were in before, and make sure that they're all smooth and absolutely clean before we put the new ones in. So here you can see the valves. This is the exhaust valve and this is the intake valve. So here, here's the area I was concerned about. So it's more like maybe like 30 degrees or so. I hope you can see that. It's very pitted on the surface. This surface from here to here is where the valve will seal. If that's not completely even, there's a chance that you will have a leak. And the other one was just pitted, so we decided after a long discussion to get both new. So what I'll do now is a proper valve job, and I will grind them in with some grinding paste into the cylinder head. So here you can see this is the exhaust valve. I did that already. So first you go with coarse grade grinding paste, and then you use the fine grade grinding paste. And the way you want to do that is, you have this here on this little stick device and you start twisting it in your hand. And you know when there's almost no noise anymore, the pitch is getting higher and higher, then the paste is gone and you have reached a smooth and even surface, and then you move over to the next paste. However, sometimes if you have pitted areas, like I had over here, you have to work it in harder and harder and deeper. So I did this valve with coarse grinding paste for about 2 hours yesterday, until I reached here somewhat of a millimeter of usable surface around, and then I fine grinded it, and now it's seating properly. Because again, the diesel engine is a big air pump essentially, and you want to eliminate all potential leak points. So the valves are a big part of that. Also make sure that you don't get any of the grinding paste into the valve stems down here. This will destroy the engine in no time. If it happens to you, clean them out with brake cleaner or something. Make sure you keep this area clean. You want the grinding paste only on the outer rim where the valve is supposed to seal. So I did the exhaust valve already with coarse grade, so I do it now with fine grade. And I basically smeared around the rim like so. It doesn't really matter, I mean it will get everywhere once you start spinning. And also very important, never do this dry on the stem here. Use a little bit of engine oil or WD-40 or whatever you want to use. I use here normal 15 W40 engine oil. And put it in and now start grinding. And now listen to the pitch. Now that you can hardly hear anything, that is good. That is when you know you're getting there. However, I like to go one more round, or two or three, just to make extra sure. So I lift it up, scrape it off the rim again, kind of smear it underneath. Do it again. And one more time. Okay, happy with that. Now you gotta clean it out. And that is how you grind in valves. So be really thorough when you do that. Take your time. Don't rush through it. The more effort you put into it, the better the result. So now it's ready to be assembled again. You can see the nice seal over here. So it will be seated well. And again, put the valve stems a little bit, put a little bit of oil onto it, make sure everything is lubricated, and here we go. Bloop. Nice. Yeah, ready to be assembled. Also just noticed when I looked at my seals that came with the kit, they have like valve stem seals or whatever that might be. So I pulled this one guy off here and I decided to put a new one on. I didn't know I had them. So I did the job again, like the way it always is when you DIY the heck out of everything, you kind of learn along the way. So I found these gaskets in here, there's another one. So I'll go ahead and replace them also, now that I'm on it anyways. That means I have to take the exhaust valve out one more time, put it back in, but no big deal, takes 5 minutes or so. Here one more time. This is usually what I do to get the valves in. It's maybe not ideal, but it works for me as long as you keep the valve stem straight. You have this kind of cone-shaped half shells here that go on to the end of the valve stem. You see a little groove here, and you have to get it basically back to a point where you can get it over the groove, and then let the spring come back up, and that is all you gotta do to assemble the valves or take them out in the first place. Oh, here we are. So now they're in, both pieces, and that's all you gotta do. So once you start working them, I don't know if you can do that by hand, yeah, there you see it coming in and out. So job done, valves are back in. I think I might have found the reason for the blow-by. The upper two rings are stuck. They're not moving. Actually, this one came loose when I broke it loose, but this one is still completely in. It is not moving at all. So I suspect that was the reason for the blow-by and the compression loss. So the rings are definitely worn. You see the pitting out here? The upper ring is completely rusted into place and not moving at all. That isn't a good thing. So they all have to be replaced, in particular this one here. And that might be the main reason for the blow-by, why she had almost no compression. So I'm training a little bit with the tool and the old rings. You're supposed to do this top to bottom. So what I mean by that is basically that you take the top ring off first, then second, third, and then the oil ring. And hence these are the old ones, and I'm just playing with it a bit. I took them off in whatever random order. Also because the upper one here is rusted into place and I have not been able yet to loosen that up. Right, I put the tool around it, like so. You know, to get the pliers underneath and the other part into the opening, and then you carefully stretch them open as you move them out of here and out. So that way they come out easily. I noticed that there's also a hair fracture here in the ring, right here. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, so this ring is very far gone, and pain in the rear to get it out of here. But here's a fracture right here. It's a little bit of a lip that I can dangle around. So I'm trying to loosen up the ring and hopefully it will come out. Even though I'm breaking it more, as you can see, at least I have some play now. And it feels like it's getting better and I might be able to move it. Oh, now I broke it completely. Okay, that will be the first part of it. Then we'll see what we can do with the rest here. I simply keep tapping it. I was tapping it with a hammer carefully in place to move it from one side to the other. So as you can see here, that piston is in rough shape. It has probably more craters than the surface of the moon. And right there, where it is pitted the most, or where all these deeper craters are, there's also apparently deformation of the groove here for the upper ring, because this is not coming out no matter what I'm trying. It almost feels like it's under pressure. I got all the rest of it out, but this little piece remains, and I'm having a really hard time getting this out of here. However, just checking with the bare eye, I can't see any penetration of the surface at the piston anywhere. There's no cracks, not even the grooves, as far as I can tell, so I will see if I can get this out, clean it thoroughly. So at this point, my piston is so far gone that I decided to saw out the rest that I showed you before, and I'm getting there. So you know, once again, the cleaned piston and the ring grooves look somewhat okay. I had to saw the one out that wouldn't come out. Right here where it's so pitted, it looks like, again, almost like the surface of the moon. There's so many craters in here. Right in here was a piece stuck, and I ended up sawing it out with a little hand saw. Super careful, and it worked. So this is what I used to saw it out with, and it kind of worked. So hopefully we'll, when we put the other ones in and measure now with a feeler gauge, we'll get the right measurements. Right, so we're putting on the new piston rings. That's my set of new rings. It's 4 of them. As you can see here in the drawing, the upper one has 2 grooves, so it has a different color in the set. It's kind of dark and has an E, and that goes up towards the combustion chamber. And the other 2 ones have a slightly slanted rim. And it's important that you pay attention to the marking on here. It says right here, it says M top. So that goes up towards the combustion chamber also. That's 2 of them, and the last one is the oil ring. You can put it on either way. Don't attempt, or never ever attempt, to put them on by hand. Use the proper tool, these pliers. So that's what you want to use to make sure that you don't bend them, twist them, and if everything goes okay, they should move freely. And here you can see, before you do that, you put the rings in basically backwards into the groove, and measure with a feeler gauge that it's not more play within the feeler gauge and the ring of 0.010, maybe 0.12 or something, but not more. So hopefully this will work out and we get compression back. That'd be great. So I'm now measuring with a feeler gauge. So it's basically 0.10 mil. That's what I meant to say. Doesn't go in there. Let's see if the next leaner one will fit in. It's an 8. Yeah. It's actually really good. Still a very snug fit for the upper one. Yeah, barely can get it in within between. This is 0.08 mil. So that's nice to see. So the first one seems to be in good shape. Number 2 up. This way. Goes in here. Yeah. The oil ring is always a little tricky because it got that little spring in there. I get over there, kind of into the groove on one end. Nice and slow. Yep, and it looks like this one was successful. So we got number 1 on, it has play. Very nice. Number 1 is on. So like I said, now everything else you have to pay attention to the right orientation and top up. So put that into the pliers with the opening facing towards those little handles. Yeah, seems to be okay. Moving freely. Next one. So again, I'm top up. Here it says top. If we go put it in this way, you can turn them later on into the right position. You don't want to have the openings all in one place. They should be, if possible, evenly distributed across as much as you can. So now I have the piston rings on. They're all moving freely, nice and smooth, the way it's supposed to be. And I made sure that the openings are as far away from each other as possible, so for 4 rings 90 degrees apart, to allow as little blow by as possible. That's the way we will press the piston rings now, so that the piston can go back into the cylinder. But before we do that, we'll hone the cylinder one more time to make sure it's nice and smooth. So now I'm going to hone the cylinder. As you can see, there's still a lot of residue in there. It doesn't look absolutely clean. So I put a little bit WD-40 in there, because you never want to do that job dry. And then I'll use my honing tool. So it has a tensioner on top. But I don't want to play with that too much as of right now. I think it's probably going to be okay if I just give it a relatively loose scrub with it. I don't want to dig in with it too deeply. So here we go. No, it doesn't look that much better, to be honest. Maybe we'll go one more time. You don't want to do that too often. But be careful that you don't alter the cylinder walls too much doing that. Okay, that looks much better. Yep, slowly but steady. There's a little bit of pitting left, but we'll go and get that one more time, and it should be good hopefully. You don't want to do that longer than 10 or 15 seconds max. That's it. Should be good enough. Yep. Just feeling it by hand, I would say it feels pretty good. No cracks, no visible cracks or anything in it. So I hope that will work. I would say that was a success. I don't want to go too far with it. I mean, could probably go one more time, but well, you know, it's an old cylinder. I don't want to make too many new grooves into it. Alright, I guess we call that a success. That's good enough. Okay, now I'm trying to compress this guy as much as I can to get it back into the cylinder. So here's a sharp edge, as you can see. I assume it goes like this. Open it up nice and wide. I can get it without any problems around my new rings. I made sure that the gaps are placed correctly. And now I'll try to get it as tight as I possibly can. Will be hopefully it doesn't go any tighter. Alright. Looks pretty good. That goes in nice and slow. Seems to work. Okay, well, that wasn't too terrible. There it is. Now I have to see that I get the orientation right, but that I can do as soon as the ploy comes out on the bottom. Right, here we go. It'll be good to have a second set of hands now. So now I have to get that ring on there without dropping it, so I better put a towel around it, because I know my kind of luck. When it comes to stuff like that, the bolt is back in. And I used these pliers in the beginning to get them out in the first place. And it worked okay, so let's see if we can reverse the process. That's not in. It would have been way too easy. Now it's in. Beauty. So that went pretty slick. There it is, locked into place. So the piston is connected to the rod again, and it means I can drop the cylinder down. Okay, so gas back on. Put a little bit of oil into it too. That sounds good. Good, perfect. So now putting the head gasket on, I use a little bit of air to make sure that there's not a chance that I'll miss a speck of dust on here or anything like that. Like I said, I didn't find any orientation on it, like up or down or anything like that. It looks exactly identical to me. So that's the way I put it on. Next, before I place the head, I want to make really sure that there's no rust crumbs or anything falling out of it. I use basically just air. Just air to make sure everything is nice and clean. Okay, here we are. Okay. Okay, let's back on. So again, real quick, I just put on the head and used compressed air to make sure that I had no rust crumbs out of the raw water cooling system that goes around the head, falling within between the head, the gasket, and the cylinder. So this should be good now. Now I start tightening again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, number 5 and number 6, and the smaller ones are 17mm sockets, the bigger ones 19. The big ones go 108 Newton and the smaller ones 44 Newton. So we're at 100 and then I go to 108. Then we'll do it. And then again, following the correct order, starting with this guy here. Okay, that's number 1, number 2, start checking my readings, 108. Okay, those are 4 big ones, and now the smaller ones, these are 17. So, oh, and by the way, oh, almost screwed it up. Very important, this is only 44 Newton. Only 44. There's really not that much on the smaller boards. Good. Okay, that was it. Talking that. Now it's time to put the manifold back on. Here's the gasket. Now important is that the orientation is correct, otherwise you will not have proper flow. So I checked the big square thing is in the back there, so it goes on like this, with in between. Alright, so I got the exhaust back on. I didn't find any better way than bending this here. I know there's probably a better way of doing it. I would assume if you lift the whole block up, including the cylinder itself, you can get down there to the screw, but from this position I really didn't know how to help myself other than very carefully trying to bend this into the correct position. I apologize if some professionals are bleeding the eyes right now, but it's the best I could do. Okay, so with the valve adjustment, I know my camera just turned off, so I'll say it one more time. What you want to do is you turn it until both rockers move, and then it says in the menu turn 1 revolution further, and then you adjust the valve and you use a feeler gauge to put it within between here and here. So the exhaust is 0.35 millimeter and this is 0.30 millimeter, and you want to have it in there that it creates some friction, a little bit at least, to hold the feeler gauge in place by itself, like so. So this here is a 030, see, there's a bit of friction, so that would be good. I can move it, but it's a little bit under tension, so that's what you want to do, and then you have to readjust it once the engine has warmed up, because actually that's just a rough adjustment, and yeah, and then you do your fine adjustment. That's it. So I just put the bleed off line back on. That is something that needs to come back on here. Let's see. Oh, And then the fuel supply line that has 2 gaskets to make it super fun to put on and lose something in the bilge again. So that goes on here. And for this I have not found any newtons or how tight you have to fasten that. So I just do it very careful and hope not to break anything, because after super tight comes off. So I leave it open a little bit and turn it to see if it's bleeding fuel. When I turn the engine by hand, to make sure I get there it comes. There comes the diesel all the way to the injector, so to speak, to bleed it off. Okay, I did put everything back together now, and that's it on the engine. So everything is back the way it's supposed to be. Alright. Go back a little further. Back. Little less. Little less. What did you do?
Sailing good on boat.
You rode it?
Yeah.
Very cool. Hold on, where can we find one of these?
On Sailing Good Old Boats. Homepage.
Homepage?
Homepage.
Find the shop.
Find the shop.
Yeah. Then we got Ship Happens, if you want that. Tuck the belly in, hang on. Belly in. Ship Happens.
We put the link down below into the description box.
That was it for today. Bye bye.
See you next time.
Thanks for watching, and see you next time on Sailing Good Old Boats.